Happy day, everyone. You're listening to El Happy Breath Hour. Our intention is for you to learn and practice how the breath can guide you to wake up, let go, and shift your success and happiness in life, love, business, sports, and beyond. I'm your host, Roberto Suarez, a happy coach. But before we get going, let's take a few deep breaths and relax. And what we're going to do is inhale through the nose for a couple of seconds and just let it out through the mouth. It's like a sigh of relief. So let's do 3 or 4 of those just to get centered. You ready? So here we go. Inhale, then exhale and relax. Let's do that again. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. One more. Take a deep inhale. Exhale. Just notice how you're feeling. Today we have our guest is Ian. Is it Quigley? Is how you say it?
Yep.
He's a
Ian
person.
Ian Quigley.
Ian Quigley. All right.
That's my
He's a
name.
He's a personal development coach based in New Jersey. He has years of experience with breathing, plant medicine, and is a world traveler, teaching at yoga studios, gyms, in parks, and at client homes. To him, breathwork is really about helping others to find their inner healer, to break out of the old patterns of feelings and thinking. His mission is to help as many people as possible to recover their optimum health and clarity of focus using the power of their own breathing. So, welcome, Ian.
Thanks,
How
Roberto.
are you?
I'm well. I'm well.
You're well.
It's good to be here. It's good to be
But
doing this.
but before we get going, you kind of brand yourself as Soul Phoenix. Is that a brand or is that what is that?
Well, a while ago, I was just in a sweat lodge, and I was going through an identity shift, an identity crisis, I guess. Just a big breaking, a breaking away from the past, and it popped into my head to start calling myself by a different name. Like that would be helpful uh, during the
Wow.
process, and I've just been playing with that name for a while.
Does it have like a meaning behind it, or I know soul is like sun.
Yeah, yeah. I spell it SOL.
Uh-huh. In
So you
Spanish
can
is sun. You know.
I like playing with words. So you can look at it as the sun or soul, like the inner
Hmm.
depth of a person, or SOL, shit out of luck, whatever you want. You can interpret it a million different ways.
Oh, okay. All right. Just
So.
just want to clear that one. I think it's pretty cool. But anyway, so how did you get into breakfast? Or yeah, can you tell me your breast story or our audience?
Yeah, I started getting into meditation in
Hmm.
around 2012. I was, I grew up in New York and New Jersey, and was just kind of going about life. Um, just always doing what seemed to make sense within my paradigm at the time. And started, I've always had something inside of me just crying out for something. I'm here for something different. And I just started after not finding an outlet for that feeling for a long time, even through music and theater, I just started getting into meditation. And in my journey about learning about what meditation was, I started doing rebirthing breath work. There were seminars happening in Manhattan, and I went to those. And my first breathwork experience was nuts. It was really nuts. Yeah. If you want to hear the details on that.
Yeah. Explain so people, like our audience, so they can get experience. Like for example, what rebirthing breath is, and your experience. That'd be great.
Well, rebirthing is a form of breathwork that came out of the 60s and the 70s. Um, and we're still learning about breathwork now.
Mm-hmm.
obviously. There's so
Yeah.
much more information on it coming out, around the physiological science behind it, and you know, different methods of breathing, different ways to breathe and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but at the time, it was just breathe powerfully in a continuous way. Um, and the experience was similar to what some people would take psychedelics for, or what some people who were going through an extreme consciousness adjustment would go through. Just and I had full body tetany, and tetany is some sort of a muscular contraction response to the alkaline shift in the blood, because releasing a lot of CO2 causes a degree of vasoconstriction, and depending on your health, your body has a response to that. So I was in a full, every muscle in my body was constricted as if I was being electrocuted, just even down to my face. I couldn't even ask for help. It was
Wow.
just
Yeah.
totally stuck.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask for help, but there were also other things happening. I was having visions, going in and out of awareness of my body. Um, and it was an absolute chaotic experience of being in this psychedelic pinball machine of emotions and
Uh,
visions and um, emotions and visions.
mm.
Yep.
And how did you release it? Were you ever to, I guess eventually you released that contraction, right?
Yeah, well, I
Did
mean, I
you?
stuck with the practice for a long time because coming out of it, I was totally fascinated by what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was open to it. I was open to the experience.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to. I didn't want to. I was looking for something, and I just thought, oh, I don't know. I just was fascinated by it.
Wow.
That
So
breathing could do that.
yeah, so that's great.
Um,
That's how I started, by the way. I the first I was a rebirther from 25 years ago. I did my first rebirthing session, and yeah, but I actually started with Tai Chi and doing some breathing exercises there and stuff like that. And I realized I didn't know how to breathe, and then one of my cousins one time said, "Have you ever done rebirthing?" And I go, "What the hell is that?"
hmm.
This was about 2000, 2002, something like that. So I went to a session like I guess you did in New York, and I didn't get contracted. I was just full of energy and tingling, and I almost like left my body, and I don't know what was going on, but all I know that when I I stood up, I was like full, like in Tai Chi, I was trying to connect to energy, and I couldn't because I had so much stress. But when I did the rebirthing, I just felt all that tingling, all that energy, and I said, "Oh my God, what the hell is this?" And that opened me up to start doing it more and more and more.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, yeah.
so
I think early on I was just so being raised in the city and in suburbia and with the culture that I was born into and all that. There really wasn't a whole lot of room for just feeling.
mm,
And this experience of overwhelming feeling was was something that I was craving.
mm,
Um, because I felt restricted, um, you know, misunderstood. I felt like I couldn't communicate clearly with others.
mm,
Um, I felt like I couldn't really do what I wanted to do. And then rebirthing gave me this outlet for this feeling of just being just like totally just dropping out the floor on what I was experiencing, and having these deep, deep feeling, sensory, rich sensory experiences,
mm,
you know?
mm-hmm.
And to me, that was just so much more interesting um, than like playing basketball or video games. Um, I felt I was feeling this deep connection with something, and maybe it was just myself,
Yeah.
or subconsciously with the people in the room. Um, but there was a sense that I was really, really having like an experience, you know?
Yeah, yeah, like you were alive.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, what were you doing then? Were you a student? Because
Yeah,
you're
I was
pretty
going to
young.
college.
You're pretty young right now, right?
Yeah,
How old? Can I ask you how old are you?
I'm 29.
Oh, okay, you're a youngster. And you've been doing this now for like 11 years. Is that what you said? Yeah, 12 years, 11
Uh,
years.
I, I'd I'd say like I've been doing it for real for about 5 years, but 10 years of
Yeah.
time with breathing and meditation and playing with breathing and
So you started like at 19. Okay. Wow.
yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So you were basically a student back then when you started doing this work.
Yeah, I went through elementary, middle, and high school and went off to college.
Yeah.
And the whole time I just felt like I was in this conveyor belt of like, I don't know what's happening, but okay, we're doing this. And at some point, I just hit a mental health wall of depression
Mm.
and addiction, and like avoidance patterns, because I wasn't really doing what I wanted to be doing with my time. So I started avoiding doing it. And eventually, I dropped out of school, and that I was going to school with my girlfriend at the time, so then we split up.
Hmm.
She kept going, and I was in a state of just total questioning, like what is real? Why am I really here? Um, and what's this all for? You know.
Hmm.
And these questions were coming up because I was basically just doing what my family wanted me to do, and what seemed to make sense in the environment that I was in. And I just always had this feeling like so there was more to life. There was, you know, But I was also dealing with some trauma patterns that I wasn't aware of.
Mm.
I hadn't really looked into like psychology at this
Hmm.
point yet.
Okay.
So I didn't really have a sense of how trauma affected people or what they could do about it, um, and what would make better or what would make things better or worse for someone who was dealing with trauma patterns in their psychology.
Hmm. Wow. You know, this is such a great conversation that we're having, because, one other question I always ask people, like, what would you advise your 21-year-old self? But you're going through it now, like what you were going through when you were 19, 20, 21. When I was 19, 20, 21, I don't know what the hell was I doing. I was a football player, ego, right? Uh, in the six in the it was the 60s, late 60s. Going through Vietnam and going through all that, and am, am I gonna, like fighting all that, going through all that stuff, but thinking, I don't know what the hell I was thinking. We were just doing pot and trying all kinds of different drugs and just getting into this whole new consciousness. And that's when rebirthing was actually starting in that, you know, with Leonard.
Yeah.
And even then, in the early 70s, they were going through a shift in consciousness that was going on in different ways. And they started doing breath work, but I was so crazy. Like one time I was with this girl in the morning, I kind of like woke up and she's doing a headstand with no clothes on. I go, "What are you doing?" She says, "Yoga." And she goes, "Yoga?" And I go, "Oh my God, what is that?" And and I go, "Well, I'm gonna go smoke a joint and go work out. I got to go to football practice." That's the kind of mindset that I had, back then. You know,
That was when yoga was first coming into the USA, right?
yeah. Well, it had already been here, in the 20s and the 40s and stuff like that. But in the late 60s, it started, started really coming in.
Uh huh.
Uh, I wish I would have listened to her and started doing yoga with her. You know, it would have speeded up my process. of transformation. But anyway, my life was okay. I had to go through my stuff, but it's interesting,
Well,
what you're saying about the trauma, because do you know that in rebirthing, we uh, we always go after, there's like, it used to be five biggies that they worked on, and the five biggies uh, were a personal lie that you have created for yourself, or your most heavy limiting belief, parent disapproval syndromes, birth traumas, death urge, and past lives. Right now, they opted to eight, which is the what is it? The release of the feminine syndrome, uh, school trauma, and religious trauma. Right.
yeah,
So that's some of the
religious
trauma.
trauma syndrome is a real thing.
Yeah, and those traumas, like, they're all in this, like, affect people in so many ways. That I see it all the time. And like in your case, when you really tighten up like that your first time, consider that could have been a birth trauma.
I was
So
born with a broken collarbone,
there you go.
and part of my eyelid got beat up on the way out.
Wow.
I broke my shoulder, my
Really?
collarbone, coming out
Coming out?
trying well, for whatever reason.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So that tightening up and stuff, a lot of times, is birth trauma. When I see people really getting really heavy into it, it's like a birth trauma experience that they're having.
Yeah, it's these psychological patterns
Mm-hmm.
are fascinating to me because
Yeah.
we are creatures that our mind is made out of psychological patterns. It's what gives us a consistent sense of self.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times people want to, people start feeling trapped in their lives, right? If you think about that, it's an interesting thing to say, because then it's like, okay, if I'm the one who's trapped in my life, then what, my life is in control of me? Is it really my life then? Like, what's really happening there?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so we just want to grow. The flower pot has gotten too small, and we just want to grow. Um, but we get attached on an identity level to everything. So, yeah, I think it's healthy. We don't live in a culture in the States where over the course of your life you're supposed to like grow and change and transform and experience everything you can. We don't really see it that way. Uh, we see it as, oh, you want to be a stable person, and you're born a certain way, and you do everything that's in line with that, and that's how it's supposed to work, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because as children, we look to the adults who are always trying to control us to show us what we're supposed to expect from life. And so we take on the way they see the world, and eventually we get trained out of seeing it our way, the
Mm.
intrinsic way, and yeah, we just lose touch with that inner genius, that whispering voice on the inside, because some people in some kinds of yoga and in some kinds of breath work, they talk about how you could potentially be so clear-headed and so healthy that you could extend your lifespan for like way beyond what basically anyone has witnessed
Mm-hmm.
in regular society. I definitely think that that's a good direction to look in.
Mm-hmm.
Is how can I eliminate cognitive dissonance, which is my own mind fighting itself as I'm living my life. how can we eliminate that and free up that energy so that we have access to it, and we can use it, and we're not creating disease in the mind or in the body then,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
disease is what's taking out everybody,
Mm-hmm.
and we, in a lot of ways, the corporate structure of society, um, it fosters disease in a lot of ways because of the lack of the human integrity in it. Um, and I don't want to get too far into that. I think
Yeah.
we all know that. It's like people have been saying that forever.
Yeah.
You know, so, but yeah, there's uh, so yeah. In 2012, just I would think I was realizing all of this subconsciously, and I came to rebirthing, looking for freedom, looking for release, and looking for whatever I was missing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've worked with ayahuasca quite a
Mm-hmm.
bit.
Okay.
I've even lived in the jungle in Costa Rica, and been down to Peru to go be with curanderos down there.
Okay.
Who, interestingly enough, curanderos, they never use the word shaman or healer, right?
Mm-hmm.
A curandero is like a doctor.
Yeah.
It's like if you have like an illness, you go to a curandero, and they're gonna get you well again. That's how they see it. It's not this sort of vague sense of feeling better that
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the time people are looking for.
Yeah.
If you have a problem, they will solve it. You pay them, and they will help. They will solve it for you using plant medicines, and diet. Diet is everything to the curanderos. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you can't be eating what most people are eating and get well. It turns out, in their medical system with the plants, with the
Mm-hmm.
pharmacology of the plants of the jungle. I kind of forget where I was going with this, but
But you were
yeah,
going through, your experience,
yeah.
and
So yeah. On the breathing note,
yeah.
a lot of people now are, we want we want release from this experience, right, of pain. A lot of the
Mm.
time, this that we have pain, and it's stinging us in our minds or in our bodies or both. And in trying to get away from that and trying to avoid it, get away from it, or just ignore it, and want to have an experience uh, of something, we're making an intrinsic mistake when we think like that, because a lot of people are going down, ayahuasca tourism is happening now, where people are going down to Peru to want to have a big experience in the medicine. So they're starting to put other things, where some retreat centers are putting other things in the medicine, like datura and
Mm.
whatever, to speed up your heart rate a little bit or give you real blast off visions. um, but according to the people that I was down there with, the Ayahuasca Foundation people, who are awesome, and I recommend them 110%, because they only put ayahuasca and chacruna in the brew. So even if you drink it, unless you're really focused and relaxed and in a being a genuine listener, sometimes people don't even feel anything, or they're not sure what they felt. And then other people have a strong experience in their intention, in their prayer, in their ceremony, and it's very mysterious why this happens, and it's really profound. Um, and so, like, as I look back on my early days with rebirthing breath work, I come to find that, yeah, I wanted a high. I wanted to have an experience. I wanted I wanted you know I, I wasn't facing the issues that were causing me to seek rebirthing in the first place.
a lot of, but that's how in the West we get into stuff, right? Like people get into yoga for physical, and if they do it enough, eventually they might, then go spiritual, instead of going in it through a spiritual experience. But you're talking about ayahuasca. I've experienced it. I've gone to Peru. Uh, it's it's too, it's like at the end, what are we looking to heal? The way I basically I try to simplify it, for people. My whole because my whole life, I guess you could call it pain. Mine was fear. Like I fear everything. Like I live my life from fear. But that was what drove me for many years. Like even fear to play a football game, but I would go and then become like good and be the most idol player, right? Even like with ayahuasca, uh, like a few years ago, I went to a curandero there that just gave me just a little bit because it was one on one, and he had the medicine just take me over, in such a short period of time that I thought I was goner, you know, and he cut it and everything. He told me, look, you're afraid. I'm going to give you little by little so you can love the Mother Earth instead of fearing it, because your
Mm.
whole life is about fear, you know?
This is a smart man.
Yeah, yeah, he's
Yeah.
he's he's like unbelievable, right?
Mm.
Because he was the first one that ever kind of went that way, you know?
Well, I mean, what makes fear hard to face is
Yeah.
this feeling of stress and helplessness combined.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, you can have like that was an interesting definition I heard somewhere recently. It said that when fear and fear is stress, it's just a stress of any kind,
Mm-hmm.
plus a sense of helplessness to do anything about the stress or to get away from it, or yeah, that's helplessness and stress together.
Yeah.
So, but um, that's it's part of our developmental journey is facing fear.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
sometimes in the
absolutely.
medicine and in breath work, scary experiences come up.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that we can welcome them and go through them and um,
And experience it.
yeah, that we can eventually just get getting stronger, learning that we can handle stress
Yeah,
and we're not helpless. We just have
absolutely.
to find a way to wake up to that. But like with your curandero, it's very good because he didn't want to give you a negative association of helplessness with the medicine. He wanted to make sure that that you were able to meet it. And and yeah, and
Yeah, yeah,
I would recommend that for anyone with any kind of psychedelic, like or any kind of mind altering trip type experience, or like anything. Like
yeah.
start off small and have fun with it, and then work your way up to making it big.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone does. Like I don't think anyone just starts jumping out of airplanes. Like like they probably work their way up by like going diving somewhere off doing long falls and jumping, and then
Yeah,
eventually like go skydiving to feel that big one or whatever.
yeah. Or
I don't
go,
know.
you do like what do you call it when they hold you? It's like a buddy jump
Yeah,
for a
yeah.
while.
They don't even let anyone just jump out.
No,
You
no,
got to do
no.
the buddy thing first. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, so that was a whole other experience for me. Like the first time I did it, the guy had to go ready one. When I say three, we're there, and I must have been so like tight that he goes one, and on one we went out the window. He didn't get to three. He didn't let me. But yeah, so that's listen. The Everybody is different, right? So different people have different experience and they have different stuff. And what I tell people, look, the simple way is to feel everything in your body. So if your body's heavy and contracted, there's something there that is holding you back, right? That you're not aware of it. So if you can shift that feeling in the body first, then that'll help you open up and maybe quiet down and not be in your mind. Because once you get into your mind, when you're feeling a certain way, you're not in control.
Yeah, you can't fight the mind with the mind,
Yeah,
right? If the
yeah,
mind is haywire, you got to
yeah,
get into the body.
yeah,
You know.
yeah. So, and then, the only way, at least in my experience, because whatever I say is my experience, it's not the truth in my world, it's like, it's just my experience. The only way that I've been able to release stuff is through the experience. Like if I don't experience it, it stays there because I resist it. So so when we have a pain or whatever, it's for us to experience something and be able to experience it and relax so you can let it go, you know? And and if you don't go through that experience, it's going to stay there. What we do is we resist it. So some of us will take drugs, some of us, take pills, some of us will have sex, some of us eat, whatever it is to not feel. So there's different ways to transform yourself, or you know I try to keep it simple. Like the first kind of thought that I created for myself is that I create my own reality. So in order for me to shift anything that is manifesting outside of me, I had to look over here, not out there, and be able to shift in here and connect in a certain way. And now I've gotten to the point that breath is my medicine, So I use the breath as a way to go inside, to connect, to release, to feel better, to manifest, to do different ways and just use the breath, to do that. Now I'm not like the master guy that I can just release everything. Like the other day I had an allergy attack, and I go, how in the hell did that come from? Right? So I was
Well,
breathing, I was relaxing, I did all this stuff, and then I said, the hell with it. I had to take two antihistamines because that was able to drive me. It dried my body, right? And I was able to release it, but I couldn't release it just by by saying, okay, I'm just going to sit here and experience it, because it was, my nose was running, I was coughing, I was like, I go, what the hell,
yeah.
and
Well, it's. I mean, life is complicated.
mm-hmm,
It really is, and a lot of people. I've always been suspicious of religion and
mm-hmm,
religious type thinking
mm-hmm,
because of the easy answers.
mm-hmm,
It disempowers people from being their own scientist,
mm-hmm,
from really asking like the most interesting questions, from really expressing their genuine curiosity. Um, and it seems, we, as far as we have this mind and a body
mm-hmm,
and an environment, and there's a big story happening that we're all co-creating together here on Earth, and within our personalities, we all want something based on how the personality is programmed. But sometimes what we want gets in the way of what our soul is really crying out for. And there's no, for me, there's been no religion or culture that has the answers for me. I've had to I've had to question everything
mm-hmm,
and try to look at everything, try to give everything an honest look, and then find out that it's not a finished product in itself. If we're alive now, we're actually here to be alive now and to keep discovering the truth together, um, as a planet of inquisitive people who, you know, for a while when I was getting into meditation at first, I read The Secret,
Okay.
and I was into manifesting and visualizing, and there's definite benefits to visualizing what you want to happen, right? Because what we think about is what we subconsciously predispose ourselves to. Um, but it's not quite as black and white, I think, as we would like to believe it is when it comes to the law of attraction. Not as people mean, you know,
Yeah.
because even the ancient ninjas used to visualize what they would do. You know, the Japanese were always into meditation,
Yeah.
being really focused, very disciplined, and they would whenever they would go to do a mission, they would visualize. They would sit down in meditation, visualize every single step that was going to happen up until they left and sat back down in meditation in that same spot, and then they would go and do it. And they thought that increased their chances of success.
Mm.
So it's almost like I feel like, as far as um, my sense of control over my own life at this point,
Mhm.
it's a co-creation game between me and my environment, and my ability to communicate, and my ability to accept and resist the influence of my environment in different ways at different times.
Mm. Listen, you know what?
Because it's like oh, sorry, what were you gonna say?
No, Leonard Orr, who was the founder of Rebirthing, since you got talking about religion, you know what he said about religion? He goes, uh, religion makes getting to heaven so difficult that even God can't get there. That was its description of it. So, like what you're doing, questioning, and that's so powerful, coming from inquiry, right? Like asking the right questions and being able to work on yourself to go inside, because you're your only healer. So you're taking the ultimate thing that you are creating your reality, and you're looking at it,
Well,
right?
I think it also begs the idea that, you don't have to know how something works for it to work
Right,
sometimes.
right. Uh-huh.
But if you want to know how it's working, that's a kind of a different game.
Right.
But you don't have to, if you want to breathe yourself into a state of ecstasy, um, but then, like, trying to share that with other people is also is a whole nother game,
Yeah.
you know. Because there's been many times where I was in just a really beautiful state, and maybe for me in particular, it's because I have a hypersensitivity to the people in my environment. Um, I'll be in a really, really, really high state, and I'll just interact with people and just find myself just wanting to meet them where they're at, and it's just a subconscious thing that I have, um, which I'm working on.
But that's beautiful. Being able to step into like different levels of consciousness, right? So you can have a
Well, cool. Because if there's too big of a difference,
yeah,
whether it's no matter what kind of feeling it is, it
yeah.
tends to estrange people. If there's
Mm-hmm.
too much of a consciousness difference,
Mm-hmm.
people just find it hard to be around each
Oh,
other
yeah, yeah,
in a
absolutely.
casual way.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's truly interesting to me, because we have this shared mind
Mm-hmm.
that, you know, I mean, I personally don't think that God is a finished product.
Mm.
Is not a finished thing. If it's happening through us,
Mm-hmm.
That means that we're developing it. We are developing God.
Mm-hmm.
That's just how I see it.
Wow.
You
Let
know.
me ask you something. So now that you've gone through all these experiences and what are you doing out in the world now? How are you supporting people? Are you coaching people? I guess
Yeah.
you're a
So
personal
I
development
have
coach.
I have a website
Yeah.
called theoriginalmedicineofbreath.net, and that's the best way to contact me.
Oh, great.
I do sessions with people around breathing, but it's also a way for me to just help, because I know there's a lot of people who are out there who are struggling with their just certain things like nutrition, especially,
Mm-hmm.
or moving the body, or they're just not in an environment where they have like a like a healthy soundboarding person who can give them objective feedback on what they have to say about things and about their own process. So I try to do that for people, where when I talk to someone, there's questions that they fill out about different areas of life, and basically in filling out those questions, it becomes pretty obvious
Mm-hmm.
what needs more energy, what needs less energy, what needs more attention, what needs less attention. Um, and those areas are relationships, nutrition, and exercise. And for me at this point, breathing is something that is really for fine tuning everything else. It's really just because we're already mostly, we're already here. Um, we just need help getting over ourselves. And we have to help each other get over ourselves.
Okay. Yeah, That's that's great. So so you use the breath to fine tune. You know, what I tell people, because people a lot of times, well, oh, another thing to do. I go, you're breathing anyway, right? But you're not conscious about it. So all we're doing is helping you become conscious of your breath. And maybe you're not breathing correctly, and maybe we can help you shift it in a way that's going to support you in whatever you're up to. By just shifting how you breathe. Could be just a very simple thing you know, that that can help you greatly. At least that's my what I.
Yeah, yeah, because we if our social support system isn't good for us, we end up isolated.
Mm,
And then in isolation, we have the personality that we developed thus far in life, and that personality will always tend to breathe a certain way.
mm,
And so there are a lot of benefits to just getting into the breath and just open it up all the way. Just just open it up all the way, start playing with it, just start breathing all the ways that you wouldn't normally breathe. There are a lot of benefits to that. But also, it's the most sensitive body system that we can play with, and it shouldn't be, it's not like it should be approached with respect and sensitivity as well,
uh,
and patience.
perfect. Yeah, absolutely. Um, so let me ask you this: if we go into the future, right? Uh, 10 years from now, since you started 10 years ago, how are you going to see the world in terms of personal development? In the breath, like breath work. Where do you see it going? If you or if you or how what happened if you step out into 2033, what happened in those 10 years?
Oh, well, um, there's no telling how the world is going to look in 2030. I think that getting a clear head, resolving your own health issues, um, getting your finances in order, um, getting your relationships in order. These are things that can only benefit a person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, But as far as what the world is going to look like, there's a lot happening,
Mm.
and it's up to all of us actually how it goes.
Yeah.
Depends on how much we the people can get together
Mm.
and make what we want to happen, as opposed to having something happen to us.
Mm. Great. That's good advice. So, what would you give somebody just getting into that is exploring, like somebody young, let's say, right? Or not even young, an entrepreneur or a student or somebody professional or uh, a mental coach or wellness coach, that haven't really explored breath work as a tool. What what advice would you give them?
Well, it's well, first off, it's really the best way to start is by observing your breathing.
Mm.
Don't make it boring. Just learn to be curious with details. Learn to have fun just actually observing something that's totally strange, and seeking to feel more without trying to generate or exaggerate anything. Just start spending time with what's already there, and just opening up to it, letting it happen. Just spend time doing that. And spend time getting away, from that voice. That's,
Mm.
the voice of whatever going on. Early life, parents, upbringing, genetics,
Yeah.
whatever gives us, sort of an internal story that we have. Just learning how to make that secondary to the awareness of the right now happening, that, life force is coming in and it's a part of you. Make that primary in your sensory awareness, without trying to do it, without needing to exaggerate
Mm.
anything, or be forceful. If you can do that, that's laying an extremely solid foundation, and there's nothing better.
Mm.
Um, but it's
Wow,
difficult.
great. That's great.
Yeah.
Recommendation, a suggestion, or tip. That's like so profound what you just said. And I hope everybody's listening to you. In that awareness of how we're breathing or not breathing right now. That that's the first thing. That's nothing else. Uh,
Yeah, but also
wow.
this needing to control it.
Yeah.
This needing also, like if you're just getting started with breath work, don't think of yourself as qualified to control it. Because you're just going to end up learning about what you're doing later on.
Yeah.
So again, like, just start at the foundation, approach it with total curiosity, respect, and as if you're ignorant,
Yes.
because you are, and just start observing yourself and observing the story that you're telling yourself, and how that story is affecting your breathing, right?
Mm.
Or if the feelings in your body, like, you gotta just start by looking for patterns where it's like, if the feelings in your body are causing a thought response, which causes an emotional response, which changes your breathing, you can start to see, and just, sort of get out of the get out of the get out of needing to control any of that. It all just starts to sort of melt down on its own. And yeah, and then, like, once you're coming at breath work from not a place of escapism,
Mm-hmm.
or wanting to have an experience, or wanting, you know wanting to create a shift, then start playing with rebirthing, with something like rebirthing when you
Mm,
don't need it,
mm,
right? If you think you need it,
yeah.
don't bother with it. But once you don't need it, then it can become something that can add a lot of juice to whatever else you've already started doing.
Mm, wow. Yeah. And you're just explaining how you should look at life. Be like explorer, you know? Oh, wow. But anyway, that's great. Is there anything else that you want to tell our audience that is listening today? You know, anything about breath work? You know, where they can find you? If you know, whatever you want to say or express that you haven't said.
Yeah, I just want to say that you know, uh, everyone's in different phases of this great awakening that we're all going through right now, and it's important to be honest with yourself where you're at, and if you need help, ask for help. Um, but if you if you you know and you have to, and just be like that. There's no need to do everything alone, because you actually do have that option. You can and just we're there's a big awakening happening, and we're coming to find out that there's no thing that's going to solve everything for us. It's really going to be the way that we approach life, the way we approach our business with each other, the way we approach working out, the way we approach um, eating and everything is changing and evolving. And there's no formula for anyone. It's up to us to be around people who feed our spirit and help us grow stronger and more honest and more empowered.
Mm-hmm.
Because then we can do that for other people. Um, it's good for people to like, we all have a role to play, and if you get too unhappy or too unhealthy, then you can't like fulfill your role in that could have been there for you in other people's lives. So it's really important to stay happy and healthy
Mm.
and free.
That's awesome. That's one of my vision: happy, healthy, wealthy, and free.
Yeah,
I added wealthy.
yeah. But then we also have to, like, check ourselves. And religions do talk about being virtuous.
Mm-hmm.
There's seven deadly sins and all that, and seven virtues.
Mm-hmm.
And logically speaking, they apply. Logically speaking, um, embodying those things is only good for you and only good for everyone, and it makes everything work better. you know but we have this thing, like, once we start to get to a certain level of success
Uh-huh.
or a certain level of wealth or power or whatever, it's like that saying, like, oh, give a man power and see what he does with it, right?
Yeah.
And so we're always going through this up and down in life, right? But the question is how to minimize those, how to not just stay on the same wavelength all the time, but
Mm.
how to keep it moving up,
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
over time, and become a an exponential grower.
Wow.
You
It's a,
know, because it's like sometimes we get that thing that we want, and then boom, we're like, oh, I'm finished now, I'm complete, and then, like, do something that sabotages it, come back
you know,
down, start over again.
you mentioned early in the conversation about like it's a constant. It's you never stop learning. You know, or not even learning. It's all about like growing, right? Growing in wisdom, and supporting each other and surround yourself with people that that can support you. So, for people out there, you know, yeah, Ian, tell them again your website or how they can get a
Yeah,
hold of
so
you.
my
If they have any
website
questions.
This is the originalmedicineofbreath.net. You can book a phone call or a session there with me. And I'm continuously uploading more content onto it, especially now. And or if you just want to reach out for any reason, I'm also a musician. I love playing music with people, and technology makes it really easy to collaborate with everyone nowadays. Um, so yeah, I'm always looking for cool people to meet, and you know, um, yeah, if you feel like reaching out, please do.
Uh, that's great. Well, listen, it was profound. It was I love your story, you know, and what you're up to in the world, and your experiences, and being able to articulate them, and to support others. And perhaps we could do this again later in the future, and see
Totally,
what we're
Roberto.
where we're at, and maybe we'll see each other go to Peru together. I don't know,
Yeah,
create
yeah,
something, and
yeah.
but and if you need, you know how to get a hold of me. Just look up lhappycoach.com. If you have any questions, or you want to give us some advice how to improve this conversation, just let us know. We listen. And thank you for being here, Jan, and doing this for us, and providing so much wisdom. And I love all the young people that are into this new world. I love it. So I'm going to say goodbye. Namaste, everybody.
Yeah.
And we will
Th-
see you in the next session.
Thanks for having me, Roberto.
Okay.